She texts you at midnight. The conversation dies by morning. 3 days pass in silence. Then she reappears as though nothing happened. Plato buried a warning in the Republic that no one wanted to hear. He watched desire move through the city and understood its architecture. What men mistake for randomness is actually a test of boundaries. She already knows what you will tolerate before you do. Your attention is the currency she measures. How fast you respond tells her where she ranks in your world. If you answer within minutes every time, you have shown her the truth. There is no scarcity in your throne room, no selection pressure, only availability. The mirror never lies about what you permit. When she delays 3 hours and you wait 3 minutes, the exchange is complete. Desire does not flow toward the open door. It moves toward the one still deciding whether to let you in. Plato saw the cave and recognized the shadows on the wall as projections. The feminine does the same with masculine attention. She casts tests into your calendar and watches which shadows you chase. Response windows become the stage where your sovereignty either stands or kneels. You think you are being kind by always being available. What you are actually doing is removing the tension that sustains attraction. A chess piece that moves predictably loses strategic value. She will not tell you this directly because the test only works in silence. Dating dynamics hinge on a principle older than language itself. The one who controls the pace controls the frame. If she dictates when conversations begin and when they fade, she holds the throne. Your compliance is not affection, it is abdication. Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine image every man carries. When you have not integrated that image you projected onto her, you give her the power to define your emotional weather. Every delayed text becomes a storm you did not see coming. Plato understood that the city mirrors the soul. If chaos rules the inner hierarchy, chaos will rule your relationships. She tests your inner order by pushing against your outer boundaries. The man who bends immediately teaches her that no real structure exists. Attention economy is not a metaphor. It is the market you trade in daily. Every notification is a bid for your presence. Every late-night message is a probe into how you value your own time. If you drop everything to answer, you have set the price at 0. The forge does not ask permission to be hot. It simply is, and metal either endures or it does not. Your consistency in holding boundaries is the heat she measures herself against. When you waver, she learns that the forge is lukewarm and negotiable. Masculine sovereignty means you decide the rules you live by. Not rules imposed from outside, but principles forged in your own becoming. If she texts at midnight and you respond at 9 the next morning, you have spoken. The message is not cruelty. It is clarity about where your attention goes first. Plato warned that desire unchecked will devour the rational mind. He saw men abandon logic the moment a woman offered validation. The pattern repeats across centuries because the biology remains unchanged. She offers interest, you suspend judgment, and the test begins immediately. You call it chemistry when she pulls away after 3 days of intensity. What you are actually witnessing is calibration. She is measuring how much of yourself you will sacrifice to maintain her presence. The answer you give through your behavior writes the script for everything that follows. Shadow work is not optional if you want to stop repeating the cycle. Jung knew that what you refuse to face in yourself will rule you from the unconscious. The part of you that craves her approval is the part that hands her the crown. Until you reclaim that fragment, she will wear it without effort. Response windows are the most honest language in modern courtship. Forget the words exchanged. Watch the intervals between them. If she takes 6 hours and you take 6 minutes, the hierarchy is clear. Clear. Desire flows uphill toward the one who remains centered in their own gravity. The storm does not apologize for its power. It arrives when it arrives and leaves when it is finished. Your emotional availability should carry the same self-contained certainty. Not cold, not distant, but rooted in something larger than her approval. Plato placed reason at the top of the soul's hierarchy for a reason. When appetite and spirit override rational governance, the soul becomes a tyranny. The same applies to how you manage desire in the attention economy. If her message hijacks your focus every time, appetite has seized the throne. She is not your enemy in this dynamic. She is your mirror. What she reflects is the degree to which you have integrated your own anima. The man who knows his worth does not panic when she goes silent. He continues building, trusting that aligned presence attracts aligned response. Boundaries are not walls. They are the edges where respect is taught. If you allow repeated breach without consequence, you teach contempt. She may not consciously intend disrespect, but unconscious patterns fill the vacuum. Where you fail to define the line, chaos will define it for you. The chess game never announces itself as a game. It unfolds in the small moments you think do not matter. A late reply, your instant availability, the pattern hardens into doctrine. 6 months later, you wonder why the dynamic feels so unbalanced. Leverage in relationships is not about manipulation, it is about equilibrium. When one side holds all the timing power, the other becomes reactive. Reactive is not masculine in the archetypal sense Plato would recognize. Masculine energy initiates, holds frame, and moves with purpose, not permission. You were taught that love means always being there. What you were not taught is that presence without discernment becomes invasion. She does not need you available every hour. She needs you undiluted when you arrive. Scarcity of attention, when self-imposed, sharpens the value of each encounter. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming whole. That process requires withdrawing projections you have placed on others. If she is your source of worth, you have not individuated. You have outsourced. The throne inside you remains empty while you wait for her to fill it. Plato's warning was not about women. It was about the men who forget themselves. Desire is a force, neutral in itself, catastrophic when it replaces reason. The man who falls first is the man who mistakes intensity for integration. He gives the crown before he's ensured his own kingdom is in order. She watches how you guard your time because time is the one resource you cannot replenish. If you spend it freely without thought, she sees a man unmoored from his mission. Mission is the gravity that keeps masculine energy coherent. Without it, you drift toward whoever offers the next hit of validation. The mirror shows you what you refuse to see in daylight. When she tests your boundaries and you fail the test, the reflection is unforgiving, but the reflection is also an invitation to recalibrate. Every failed test is data, not defeat, if you choose to learn the lesson. Dating dynamics will not slow down to explain themselves. They operate at the speed of instinct and impression. By the time you realize you have been reactive for 3 months, the frame is set. Reframing later is possible, but requires dismantling a structure you helped build. Attention economy principles apply whether you accept them or not. The woman who takes 3 days to reply while you take 3 minutes has spoken. She has told you where you rank in her priority system. Your instant replies have told her where she ranks in yours. The forge reshapes metal by applying sustained, unyielding heat. If the heat fluctuates, the metal warps and cracks. Your boundaries must carry that same sustained quality. Intermittent enforcement is worse than no enforcement because it creates confusion, not respect. Plato understood that the soul at war with itself cannot govern a city. The same applies to the man at war with his own need for approval. If you have not made peace with solitude, her silence will torture you. That torture will drive decisions that erode your sovereignty inch by inch. Jung called the shadow everything you disown to become acceptable. The man who cannot admit he craves validation will create elaborate stories. He will say he is being generous, flexible, understanding when he is actually afraid. Afraid that if he enforces a boundary, she will leave and confirm his unworthiness. Masculine sovereignty is not loud. It is simply unmoved by tests it recognizes. When she goes cold for a week to see if you will chase, sovereignty waits. Not out of strategy, but out of self-respect that does not require her participation. The chase is a script you were handed. You are allowed to set it down. The storm passes over the mountain, but does not move it. Your frame should carry that same rooted quality. She can bring intensity, withdrawal, emotion, silence. The mountain remains. Not because it is unfeeling, but because it is aligned with something deeper than her mood. Plato's Republic was an attempt to map the ideal city by first mapping the soul. He knew that external order reflects internal hierarchy. If your inner king is weak, your outer relationships will mirror that weakness. The woman in your life becomes the test of whether you have enthroned reason or appetite. Response windows are the simplest diagnostic tool available. You do not need to read her mind. Watch the intervals and your reactions. If she takes 8 hours and you take 8 minutes, the power dynamic is written. Power is not about dominance. It is about who maintains the center when the other shifts. She is not doing this to hurt you in most cases. She's doing this because biology and culture have taught her to test for strength. Strength is not rigidity. It is the ability to hold your own gravity under pressure. The man who collapses inward at the first sign of distance has failed an ancient exam. The mirror reflects what you bring to it without bias. If you bring anxiety, it shows you anxiety. If you bring groundedness, it shows you a woman recalibrating her approach. The shift happens not because you manipulated her, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Individuation requires that you retrieve the projections poisoning your clarity. Every time you check your phone hoping for her message, you are projecting. You have made her the gatekeeper of your emotional state. That gate should be guarded by you, opened and closed according to your own rhythm. Plato knew the lover could become a tyrant if appetite ruled the soul. The modern version is the man who sacrifices mission, friendships, and self-respect for a woman's variable attention. He does not see himself as tyrannized, he sees himself as devoted. But devotion without discernment is not virtue. It is collapse disguised as love. Scarcity is not a trick you perform, it is a truth you embody. If your time is genuinely allocated to purpose, scarcity occurs naturally. She will feel the difference between manufactured distance and real priorities. One is strategy, the other is sovereignty, and only the latter commands lasting respect. The throne is not something she grants you, it is something you build in silence. Every hour you spend mastering a craft is a stone in that throne. Every boundary you enforce is mortar setting the structure. By the time she arrives, the throne either exists or it does not. Dating dynamics reward the man who has become someone worth choosing slowly. If you are chosen quickly, it is often because you were available, not valuable. Valuable men require time to access because their calendars reflect real commitment. This is not a performance. It is the natural result of a life lived with intention. Jung warned that the unlived life will haunt you in the form of symptoms. One symptom is the relationship where you feel perpetually off balance. That imbalance is your anima in exile, projecting itself onto her and demanding reconciliation. The reconciliation begins when you stop asking her to complete you. Plato's warning echoes across 24 centuries because the pattern is hardwired. Men fall first when they mistake intensity for depth. They offer commitment before they have tested character. They give the crown to a woman who has not yet proven she can wear it with care. She tests because untested ground is dangerous ground. If you collapse under the first pressure, she knows you will collapse under life's pressure. The test is not personal, it is procedural, an unconscious filter for strength. Your job is not to resent the test, but to pass it by remaining whole. Attention economy, shadow work, boundaries, sovereignty, these are not separate concepts. They are facets of a single practice, becoming unmoved by external validation. When you no longer need her to text back to feel centered, the dynamic inverts. She begins to wonder why you are not chasing, and curiosity replaces her certainty. The forge does not explain itself to the metal. It applies heat and trusts the process. Your boundaries are that forge. Enforce them without apology and watch what transforms.